Hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Dr. Deirdre Williams, and most people call me Dr. Deirdre, so you can call me Dr. Deirdre too. I'm here today to talk to you about memoirs. Memoirs, our title for today is going to be Memoirs, Writing the Story of Your Life. What is a memoir? Memoirs are factual stories about someone's life. That means it's a true story. The author, the person who writes the story, usually writes about his or her life in first person. For example, I remember what I was doing the day I got the email that we wouldn't be returning to work after spring break. Instead, I needed to prepare to start teaching my students online. That's a memorable moment for my life. And I wrote it from the perspective of I versus me saying, Dr. Williams remembers what she was doing when she got the email that she wouldn't return to work from spring break, but had to start teaching her students online. You see the difference? I versus third person, Dr. Williams. Memoirs are part of the nonfiction literary genre. That means the story is true. The information the author often provides in a memoir is factual information, and we expect that it's true. But that doesn't mean the writer doesn't occasionally embellish or stretch the truth to tell a more interesting story. Some of you might know that if you don't tell your parents the truth sometimes, or you add a little bit to your story, your mom might say, or your dad might say to you, are you telling me the truth? Or are you stretching that story just a little bit? That's embellishing, adding more to it to make it a little bit more interesting or believable. Let's take a look at this picture here. You'll see the back of a little girl's head. That's Kalia. I'll tell you a little bit more about Kalia later. But if you can look at the picture really closely, you see she's staring at the car. And the door's open and water is rushing out, and you see books and papers rushing out of the car. That would make you think the car was filled all the way to the top of the roof with water. And when she opened the door, the water came rushing out. Well, that is a true story. Kalia did get the car wet, and it had to be cleaned out and wiped down, and the windows had to be left down and the doors open for the car to dry out. But when the door was open, the water didn't come rushing out like that. So that's a point in the story where I embellished or stretched the story just a little bit to make it more interesting. Memoirs capture certain highlights or meaningful moments from one's past. They're much more emotional, and they connect the writer to someone or something that happened that impacted his or her life. That means important memories, things that the person didn't want to forget, the author just didn't want to forget, and they wanted to capture those in writing. Let's take a look at this picture here for a minute. What do you see? If you said, I see what appears to be two heads and tree branches, or trees cut in the shape of two heads, then you'd be exactly right. That's what this is. This is a tree. These are two trees, and they're cut in the shape of heads. But one head, if you notice, has lots and lots of leaves on it. And the other one, the leaves are just blowing away, and the branches are starting to be revealed. This reminded me of memories and why we should write memoirs. You see, we start out with lots and lots of memories in our heads, but over time, as more memories start to collect in our heads, or as we get older, like for me, Dr. Deirdre, those memories start to fade and they start to blow away, and then I can't remember them anymore. And someone would say, you remember when? Don't you remember that? And I'll be like, no, not I can't remember that anymore. Well, I'm starting to be like that picture where all the leaves are fading away and the branches are showing. I don't remember some of those memories. So that's why it was important for me to capture memories on paper and write memoirs. And it's important for you to do the same. What I'm going to do now is share with you one of my stories that I've written. Quit Kalia, and then there's Donovan Says. But for today, since I've already shown you a picture of Kalia's story, I'm going to read to you Quit Kalia. Quit Kalia is a book about my niece, Kalia, and some of the great memories that we had together. So give me a moment and I'll pull up the book. Quit Kalia by Deirdre Williams, that's me, Dr. Deirdre, and Kalia Williams. That's the main character, Kalia. Illustrated by Sarah Longmire. That's the person who drew the pictures. Now, everyone knows that Kalia is a very curious little girl. All she wants to do is learn more about the world. But while she's learning, she often annoys those around, especially her big brother Donovan. Take, for instance, Saturday morning. Donovan was in his room listening to music on his CD player. Now, many of you might not even know what a CD player is, but your parents might. Let's look at this next illustration. You see, it's like a box that you push the buttons and open it and put the CD in, push it closed, and then it will play the music on the CD. Let's get back to Kalia. Kalia is bored. What can I do? She thinks to herself. I know, I'll see how Donovan's CD player works. Uh-oh, in she goes, not knocking on the door. Quit, Kalia, was all that was heard as the CD player crashed to the floor. Get out! Oops, thought Kalia. I'll get it from Dad later. Maybe she's finished and she won't get into any more trouble. Then Kalia goes outside, and what does she see? A bucket and the water hose. Dad must be getting ready to wash the car. Uh-oh, Kalia, what's she going to do? I'll just see how this water hose works. Look at Kalia helping to wash the car. Do you notice anything, though, in this picture? Kalia turns on the water and sprays the car all around. Dad shouts out, "Quick, Kalia! The windows are down!" Uh-oh, we talked about that earlier, didn't we? Look what happened. You've seen this illustration. Go in the house, Kalia. The inside of the car needed to be cleaned out anyway, giggled Kalia. Hopefully she's finished. Hopefully she won't get into any more trouble when she goes into the house. Now I'm hungry. What can I eat? I know what I have a taste for is a grilled cheese sandwich. 2 slices of bread, 2 slices of cheese. I'm not supposed to turn on the stove without permission. Dad is washing his car. And Donovan won't help now that I broke his CD player. What's Kalia going to do, I wonder? But I am allowed to use the toaster. Oh my goodness. Let's see what's going to happen now that she's going to use the toaster. The sandwich won't fit. So 1 slice of bread and 1 slice of cheese in slot number 1. And 1 slice of bread and 1 slice of cheese in slot number 2. Push the lever down and wait. I don't know if that was such a good idea. Let's see. Uh-oh, something's wrong. It's burning. The cheese is making a mess. I better hurry and clean it up before Dad comes in. Look what's happened. Poor Kalia. Kalia, what are you doing? You're going to get it. Here comes Dad, yells Donovan. Seems like Donovan's pretty happy now. Look at poor Kalia. Oh, the toaster has turned over and all the cheese is running down the side of the counter. Girl, what's wrong with you? I'm just trying to explore the world. Kalia, just quit. Don't worry, I already did. At least for today, that is. Oh my goodness, look at that wink. What do you think that wink means from Kalia? Do you think, I've had enough? When she says, don't worry, I did, at least for today, that is. Do you think she's finished getting into trouble or being curious about the world? Or do you think that wink means, got some more things I'm curious about, I'll explore them tomorrow? The end. Until next time. And you know what next time means? That means what? Kalia probably has something else up her sleeve. So let's get back to our memoirs, writing our own memoirs. Now it's time for us to start thinking about things we can write about. Some things you can write about are critical choices. For you right now, your choice might be, do I get up and put on some school clothes, even though I'm not going to school, or do I get to stay in my pajamas today? That might be a critical choice for you right now. Influential people. Maybe those are very important people in your life that you look up to or that have helped you, and you're very happy that they helped you. People you might want to be like when you grow up. Those are influential people. Lessons that you might have learned. Maybe you had trouble with a math problem. And if it wasn't for your teacher, you would still not know how to solve the problem. But that teacher was very important in helping you learn that lesson. That teacher, guess what then, also becomes an influential person. Maybe you learned a lesson about learning to ride your bike. That's a lesson. Experience you've had. Experiences are learning to ride your bike, or maybe staying at home and not going back to school. That's an experience for you. Mistakes that you've made. Mistakes can be things that are good mistakes or bad mistakes. How do you come up with good and bad mistakes, Dr. Deirdre? Mistakes are bad. Not always. Some mistakes turn out really good, especially if you can correct it, right? Say, for instance, you made a mistake on your homework. Well, your teacher might let you correct it, or now, since your parents are homeschooling you, your parents can let you correct that mistake, right? Changes you've had to make. We've all had to make some pretty big changes here, haven't we? We went from going to school to going to school at home. I went from going to school and teaching at school, and now I have to teach from home. It's a big change for us, right? And there might be some other conflicts or events that have happened that you might be able to write about. So here's what you're going to do right now, and I'm going to do it too. I need you to take out a piece of paper. It can be construction paper, notebook paper, any paper that you have, and a pencil or a pen. You might even just have a crayon or marker. You can use crayons, you can use markers, doesn't matter. And I want you to take a few minutes and brainstorm. That means you're going to create a list and write down all the things that you can think of that you can write about for your own memoir. Remember, this is your memoir. You're getting ready to write the story of your life. Thank you for taking the time to do that activity. While you were doing that activity of brainstorming memoir topics, so was I. Here's some of the topics that I came up with. I came up with my first airplane ride. I remember it today, to this day. My first plane ride was to Oklahoma to an event that was for middle school and high school students. The second thing I came up with to write about was visiting my grandparents. I used to love to go stay with my grandparents in the country. And when all of my cousins were here from wherever they lived and we stayed at my grandparents' house, we had such fun together. The third thing I thought about was having to work from home every day. That's a memoir topic. I think I'll probably have a lot to write about. I hope you wrote down some really great topics too. And if your parents will allow you, or if your parents will do it for you, send me an email of your memoir topics and I'll post them on my Facebook page and my website. Well, our time together is almost coming to an end, but I have one really fun activity that we can do right before we leave, and we can start writing memoirs now. But this one's going to really be a brain challenge for you. So you ready? For this activity, let's go ahead and get started. So you'll have this ready. For this activity, you'll need a piece of paper. Doesn't matter if it's construction paper, notebook paper, copy paper, printer paper, just piece of paper, markers or marker, whatever you have, crayons, pen or pencil, doesn't matter, whatever you have, something to write with, and a piece of paper. What we're going to do before we leave each other today is something called 6-word memoirs. Where on earth did it originate, or where did it come from? Well, in 2006, a gentleman named Larry Smith presented a challenge to his community. And the challenge was, how would you tell your life story if you could only use 6 words? Where did Larry get this question from? Well, the question was inspired by a legend, Ernest Hemingway. He's a famous author. Well, he was once challenged to write an entire novel in just 6 words. Now, if you know anything about novels, you know that novels are pretty thick books. Some of them have 200 words, 300 words, 400 words, 500 words, thousands. And not just words. I said 200 words, 300 words. I meant pages. They have 200 pages, 300 pages, 400 pages, thousands of pages. So they're not just easy readers, so to speak. But he took on this challenge. He said 6 words. Okay, I can do that. So Mr. Hemingway's response to the 6 word memoir challenge was for sale, baby shoes never worn. Wow. I wonder what that meant. I wonder if his baby shoes were for sale, never worn, or he had a child whose baby shoes were never worn. That's a topic you can also research when we leave each other today, and you can find out. But in 6 words, he wrote an entire novel, For Sale, Baby Shoes Never Worn. And this experiment has now turned into a global phenomenon. Guess what? There's a website where people go on every day and they think of 6 word memoirs to write about themselves. And they can post them and leave them for others to see. Before we go on, I just want to share a little bit with you about who Ernest Hemingway was. He's known for his novels like The Sun Also Rises, A Farewell to Arms, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and The Old Man in the Sea. That won a Pulitzer Prize in 1953. Look that up, find out what a Pulitzer is. And in 1954, Mr. Hemingway won the Nobel Peace Prize. Look that up, find out what the Nobel Peace Prize is. Okay. Now, you might not know these novels that Mr. Hemingway has written. They may be a little bit older for you. Your parents might have read them, or your grandparents even. You might get a chance to read them when you're older. If you like, you might try some of them now. I want to give you some examples and show you some 6 word memoirs that were written by students. And I got these from a book called Things Don't Have to Be Complicated, Illustrated 6 word memoirs by students making sense of the world. And Larry Smith, the gentleman I told you about earlier who challenged his community, put these memoirs, these student memoirs together. So let's take a look. Here's one from someone from Keller, Texas, right here in Texas. And she wrote, "Hey, my swimming lessons paid off. Wow. Well, I'm pretty sure Charlotte, or Charlie, as she likes to be called, is not a fish. I'm guessing what she's saying is her swimming lessons, she's learned to swim now that she can actually swim with the best of the fish." What do you think? You can come up with your own conclusion. Wow, here's another one from a student that says, "Break down my walls, discover me." Interesting. I wonder what she means by breaking down her walls and discovering herself. Is she shy? Maybe she wants to try new things. Maybe there's some things she's scared to try. Maybe she wants to try to play a new sport like soccer. And she's never done that before because she was scared she wouldn't be successful or good at it. Maybe she's going to try it. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe she's going to read more books. Maybe she likes only fiction books. Or maybe she only likes graphic novels. Maybe she's going to try something else. Here's one It says, I'm a Muslim, not a terrorist. You know, this is a pretty good one too. This student just wants people to see her for who she is and not decide that because of her religion or her beliefs that she's one way or the other. You know, we have lots of stereotypes about people just based on their religion, based on how they look, based on what they wear. We form very, very, very many stereotypes and opinions that aren't so good. This one's a good one. She just wants you to know just because she's Muslim doesn't mean she's a bad person. Oh, look at this. This kind of looks like a clock, doesn't it? Let's see what he's saying here. Looks like we need to start at 1 o'clock where it says my alarm clock killed my dreams. I think what this student is saying is he was just getting to sleep really good, you know, that good spot when his alarm clock went off and woke him up. And perhaps he had to get up and get ready for school. Well, he's probably not having that problem now. Neither are you, unless your parents are keeping you on a tight schedule. But I've had my alarm clock kill my good dreams when I was just getting to sleep good. The alarm clock went on and said, beep, 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 time to get up. Still does that for me too now because I have to get up and teach my students online. So before we leave, I want you to take a few minutes and write your 6-word memoir. Remember, all you need is paper, marker, pen, crayons, pencil, whatever you have to write with and write on. Okay? So let's brainstorm together. I'm going to just brainstorm some topics I could write about and give you an example before you get started writing. So I'm thinking about safety right now because it's recommended that we all stay at home and not go anywhere so that we can be safe. I'm at home a lot now since I have to stay inside. I do go and check on my parents, but for the most part, I stay at home. And if I think about being at home and being safe, let's see what I come up with. Okay, this is what I came up with. Staying at home keeps me safe. That's my 6-word memoir for right now. Staying at home keeps me safe. And if you'll see here, I drew a picture. Picture of me inside my house, sitting on my purple sofa, reading a good book. My television has the news on it, just in case there are any updates that I need to have. Here's my window. You can see, I can see outside and see the grass, the clouds, and the sun shining. That's my 6-word memoir for today. Staying at home keeps me safe. Now it's your turn to try. Thank you so much for your attention today and joining me in this lesson, writing memoirs, writing the story of your life. I'm so happy that you could be here with me. Here's my slide with my contact information, Books by Deirdre at www.booksbydeirdre.com, and my email address, booksbydeirdre@gmail. Remember, if your parents will allow it, you can send me pictures of your 6-word memoir, and you can send me some pictures of your memoir topics. We covered a lot today, writing memoirs and understanding that memoirs are factual stories about moments and special events from your life. And then we took on a challenge of writing the 6-word memoir, which was a community challenge created by Larry Smith based off of Ernest Hemingway's challenge to write a novel using just 6 words. So I'm very glad you joined me today, and I was happy to be here with you today for this lesson. Now we're going to have a question and answer period from Samantha Babiak, who's going to come and ask me some questions, and she's from the Writers League of Texas.
Hi, Dr. Deirdre. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Thank you.
So to get this Q&A started, a lot of our readers at home are in elementary school and they are finding themselves with a lot more time on their hands. So when you were in elementary school, what were some of your favorite books?
Oh, wow. In elementary school, some of my favorite books were Marvin K. Mooney, Would You Please Go Now? That was a Dr. Seuss book.
Awesome.
And Tuesday is a wordless book. It's a picture book. And when I became an adult, I had to have that. When I became a teacher, rather, I had to have Tuesday morning on my shelf.
Ooh, well, I think I'm going to look into that one too. So when did you first start writing?
I was always a writer. I was that kid who, instead of going outside and playing, I wanted to be inside with either a book or a pencil and paper in my hand. My mother would have to make me go outside and play with the other kids.
Yeah, I love that. And there's this, misconception that you have to be a published writer to call yourself a writer, but that's not the case. There are people out there who are 6, 7 years old who are writers, and that's because they're writing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you have written a few books, and you write memoirs as well, right? And picture books.
Yes.
So what are some of your favorite memories that you've turned into books?
Well, you just heard one of my favorite memories, Quit Kalia, which is about my niece Kalia. And I forgot to tell the students that Kalia is 23 now, and she's in college to be a teacher. So throughout all her curiosity, she was able to survive with all the things she broke and all the things she destroyed. She did survive, didn't get in too much trouble, and now she wants to be a teacher. And Donovan Says is another memoir, and it's about my nephew, Donovan. And he's totally different from Kalia. 2 brothers and sisters, but two different kids. So if he said he could do it, he could actually do it. And he was like, I don't have to prove it to you. I know already that I can. And he's an adult now too. He's 26 and he's an assistant coach at the University of Colorado now.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I love memoir, the genre, and I think it's awesome because everyone has their own story. Everyone has something that they can, share with the world or that other people can relate to. And so when you're getting ready to sit down and write, when you're ready to share your story with the world, what does that writing process look like for you?
Wow. And the way that I would teach the writing process in school is probably not my writing process. But when I get a topic, when I'm writing a children's book and I get an idea, the title may not be there yet, but the words come. And so when I'm writing a children's book, the words just start to flow for me. And the next thing you know, it's finished. I can sit down and write it because the whole story comes to me at once.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so I will stop what I'm doing, and that may not sound so, but I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll start writing. Or if my phone is near me, I'll hit the record button on my phone and I'll tell the story in my phone so that I can type it out.
Yeah, that's
later.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so where do you mainly get your ideas from? You definitely pull from your life, but how do you choose and stuff like that?
Most of the stories, the children's stories that I have written and that I'm writing now have come from my life or people around me, their memoirs, and even the fictional ones that I've written. Um, I think a piece of them comes from me or my childhood. They're not necessarily memoirs, but the characters develop out of the person I am or was as a child, if you could say that. If that even makes sense, but I feel a connection to it when I'm writing. It's like, why are you? I don't have to ask why I'm writing it. I just stop and go, wow, this reminds me of when this happened
Yeah.
or that happened.
Yeah.
So
Cool. So last question. Do you have any advice for the kids out there that want to write their own memoirs one day?
write, write. Write down all your memories. Well, now I lots of people don't write anymore. You either type
Yeah.
or you record it on your phone and save it for later, or some device that you have. But whatever it is, if you write it down on paper, if you record it on a device, if you type it on a device, do so. Record it some sort of way. Put that memory down. I have tons and tons. I'm a writer. I don't always sit down and type first. I like to write first. And I have tons and tons of spirals, post-it notes, journals, books, and I keep all of those in different places. And sometimes I go back to them. Sometimes nothing ever happens with those post-it notes, but it was a thought I had in my mind. And I think any thought that you have, if it excites you, you need to write that down on paper. Even if it wakes you up in the middle of the night, I get up in the middle of the night sometimes and I have thoughts and I'll write it down on paper. And I may never ever use that thought again. But at that time, it was a great thought. So, my advice to any young writer is to just write your thought down. You don't have to write a story if you have a thought, just write it down.
Maybe it'll take you somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr.
Sure.
Deirdre.
Thank you. Thank you.